Morning Consult just released an update to their approval rating tracker for all 50 U.S. governors, so let's fill out the 2026 map with these new numbers in mind. There are 36 gubernatorial races on the ballot in next year's midterms, with Democrats and Republicans each defending 18 seats, including contests in nearly every key presidential battleground. 17 incumbent governors aren't running for re-election, either due to retirement or term limits. Among them is Democrat Laura Kelly in Kansas, leaving her party extremely vulnerable in a state Donald Trump carried by 16 points just last November. Democrats will also have to defend the open seats of Tony Evers in Wisconsin and Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, two of the three core Rust Belt battlegrounds that Trump narrowly flipped from blue to red in 2024. Republicans, meanwhile, will be playing defense in the swing state of Georgia, where Brian Kemp is term limited. Let's start by filling in the map with the races currently considered safe for each party. For Democrats, that begins with California, where Governor Gavin Newsom is stepping down after 2 terms. Kamala Harris just announced that she will not run for the top office in her home state, opening up the field to a laundry list of aspiring Democrats. Ultimately, the Golden State is solidly blue, as Republicans simply don't have a strong enough bench to make this race competitive. Similar story in Colorado. Incumbent Jared Polis is also term limited, but Colorado has trended further left than any other state over the last decade. Each of the major forecasters rates the contest as solid D, and I agree. Elsewhere, Democrats have incumbents running for re-election in Oregon, where I'm shifting my rating from likely to solid, as Tina Kotek's net approval rating has climbed to +11, up from +5 in the previous edition. Also in the solid column are Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. All 5 states have backed Democrats by double-digit margins in every presidential election this century, and each of these governors currently enjoys strong approval ratings. That's not quite the case in Rhode Island, where Democratic Governor Daniel McKee holds a net approval of just +5%, with 45% of voters approving and 40% disapproving, ranking him among the 5 least popular governors in the country. That leaves him vulnerable to a competitive primary and potentially a competitive general election, with Sabato's crystal ball shifting their race rating to likely Democrats. Still, as is often the case in institutionally blue states like Rhode Island, Republicans probably won't field a strong enough challenger to take advantage. It's also worth noting that the 2026 cycle should be relatively favorable for Democrats. Historically, the party out of power in the White House tends to perform well in the first midterm, and this will be the first major national election since President Trump returned to office. So that locks in 9 safe governorships for Democrats this cycle, bringing their total to 14 when you include the 5 states where no gubernatorial race is taking place. On the Republican side, they should easily hold Idaho, South Dakota, Nebraska, Arkansas, Texas, and yes, even deep blue Vermont. Incumbents are running for re-election in each of these states, and with the exception of Vermont, they were all carried by Trump by double-digit margins in 2024. Vermont, of course, is as blue as it gets. But Republican Governor Phil Scott has consistently ranked as America's most popular governor for several years now, with 72% of his constituents approving of his job performance. He won re-election last November by more than 50 points, even as Kamala Harris carried Vermont by 32 points. Now, as for the states where Republicans won't have an incumbent running, Wyoming, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Alabama, it simply doesn't matter. These 4 states each back Trump by more than 30 percentage points, respectively, placing them among the 10 most Republican states in the country. There is an outside chance that the races in South Carolina or Florida become competitive, but that would likely require a major scandal on the Republican side or a particularly strong Democratic challenger. So for now, they round out the GOP's list of safe seats, bringing Republicans to a total of 21 when adding these 12 to the 9 governorships they hold that aren't up for election this cycle. That leaves us with 15 competitive races. Before we get into them, let me take this moment to remind you to subscribe to my channel below. It's completely free and it helps me make more videos like these in the future. Right now, YouTube Analytics is telling me less than 20% of my viewers are subscribed. Again, just hit that button below. It's free. Thanks so much. Let's continue on with our likely states, defined as those with a strong lean toward one side, but where an upset is possible. First up, New Hampshire. Like its neighbor Vermont, the Granite State elects its governors every 2 years, and those races tend to lean more Republican than its federal contests. New Hampshire has voted for the Democratic presidential nominee in 6 consecutive elections, yet newly elected Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte is a strong incumbent. She significantly overperformed expectations in 2024, winning the governorship by 9 points, even as Kamala Harris carried the state by 3. All 3 expert ratings currently have New Hampshire as at least likely Republican, and I'm inclined to agree, as we await to see whether Democrats manage to field a strong challenger. The other 2 likely Republican seats are in Kansas and in Alaska. Kansas, notably, would be a flip. Trump won the state by 16 points in 2024, making it the GOP's top pickup opportunity on the entire map. Term-limited Democratic Governor Laura Kelly originally flipped the office from red to blue in 2018, riding a national blue wave and widespread backlash to former Republican Governor Sam Brownback's deeply unpopular tenure. She then managed to win re-election in 2022, thanks to strong personal approval ratings and the momentum from that year's abortion rights referendum. But with Kelly off the ballot, Republicans are extremely well positioned. Both former Governor Jeff Colyer and Secretary of State Scott Schwab have emerged as strong early contenders, and I wouldn't be surprised if this race moves closer to safe Republican as we approach Election Day. In Alaska, former Democratic Congresswoman Mary Peltola is reportedly interested in running for governor after losing her House seat this past November. She's already proven she can win statewide in traditionally Republican Alaska, having done so as recently as 2022. I'd still give the GOP the edge here, likely with Lieutenant Governor Nancy Dahlstrom as their nominee, but if Peltola jumps in, an upset wouldn't be out of the question, especially if signs of a significant national blue wave begin to emerge. Now shifting to the likely blue column for the Democrats, in Minnesota, incumbent Governor Tim Walz is expected to seek a 3rd term, fresh off his national exposure. He's not the strongest incumbent on the map from an electability standpoint, but holding the office still gives him a clear edge in a state that's been as reliably blue as any in modern political history. The dynamics are nearly identical in the state of Maine and in New Mexico, where both Democratic incumbents are term limited. In Maine, Democrats have 4 relatively high-profile candidates in the running, and all 4 would be favored to hold the seats. Then in New Mexico, former Congresswoman Deb Haaland, who served as Joe Biden's Secretary of the Interior, is expected to win the Democratic nomination. The Republican field is a lot more open, but Haaland would be heavily favored over any of them. Despite being quite different demographically, New Mexico and Maine have followed strikingly similar voting trends in recent cycles. Kamala Harris carried Maine by 7 points and New Mexico by 6. 4 years earlier, Biden won Maine by 9 and New Mexico by 11. Both the Cook Political Reports and Sabato's Crystal Ball give these races a likely Democrat rating at this point. Finally, Democrats receive a likely Democrat rating in New York, historically one of the most deeply blue states in the nation, but not anymore. It saw the largest pro-Trump shift of any state between 2020 and 2024, signaling real vulnerability for Democrats in a place they've long taken for granted. Governor Kathy Hochul, already among the 10 least popular governors in the country, now faces mounting pressure from within her own party. Her lieutenant governor, Antonio Delgado, has entered the race to challenge her in the Democratic primary, though based on early polling, Hochul appears likely to secure the nomination. On the Republican side, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik has signaled she intends to run for governor in 2026, but says she won't make a formal announcement until after November. With Congressman Mike Lawler officially running for re-election to his House seat, the nomination is effectively Stefanik's if she wants it. That's not necessarily good news for the New York GOP. Lawler would likely be a much stronger general election candidate. According to split tickets, wins above replacement scores, Stefanik performs about average relative to expectations, while Lawler ranks well above average. Still, recent history gives Republicans some reason for optimism. In 2022, relatively unknown Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin came within 7 points of defeating Hochul, earning more raw votes than any GOP candidate in New York since 1970, and posting the party's best percentage since 2002. That said, this is still New York. Republicans haven't won a major statewide race here in over 2 decades, and Kamala Harris carried the state by 12.5 points in 2024. But for the first time in a long time, both parties are treating New York like it's in play. So that leaves just 8 more states without a rating. Right now, Republicans are favored to hold 24 governorships, ahead of the Democrats' 18. Let's go through the lean states, starting with Iowa, where incumbent Kim Reynolds is retiring. That would normally pose a problem for Republicans, except Reynolds is actually the most unpopular governor in the country, and by a wide margin. Morning Consult's latest tracker shows just 42% of Iowans approve of her job performance, while 49% disapprove. That net -7 approval rating is 9 points lower than any other governor in the country. So in a way, Reynolds stepping aside might actually be a blessing in disguise for Republicans, especially considering Democrats are likely to nominate a very strong candidate in State Auditor Rob Sand, still the only Democrat to win a statewide election in Iowa this decade. If not for Iowa's sharp Republican shift in recent cycles, Democrats would be in a very strong position here. But the reality is, Iowa is a very red state now. Trump carried it by 13 points last November. That's what keeps this race firmly in the lean Republican column, for now. Ohio has followed a nearly identical trend to Iowa over the past 2 decades, going from a core part of the Obama coalition to backing Trump by 8 points in 2016, then voting for him again by strong margins in both 2020 and 2024. Looking ahead to the 2026 governor's race, incumbent Mike DeWine is term limited, and Vivek Ramaswamy is widely expected to secure the Republican nomination. But I anticipate he'll be a below-average general election candidate if former Congressman Tim Ryan jumps into the race on the Democratic side, or perhaps even former Senator Sherrod Brown. This could quickly become very competitive. For now, though, Ohio sits right on the edge between likely and lean Republican. And finally, for Democrats, we have Pennsylvania, a perennial battleground and usually one of, if not the most competitive states on the map. But not this time. Incumbent Josh Shapiro is running for re-election with one of the strongest approval ratings in the country and a proven track record of overperformance. He won the open 2022 race by 15 points against a deeply flawed opponent in Doug Mastriano. The 2026 election will be his chance to show whether he's a true overperformer, or if that landslide was simply a reflection of Mastriano's weaknesses. That win marked the largest margin for a non-incumbent gubernatorial candidate in Pennsylvania since 1946, and set a record for the most votes ever received by a statewide candidate in the Commonwealth. That record was actually broken in 2024 by State Treasurer Stacey Garrity, whose gubernatorial announcement is reportedly coming very soon. She'd obviously be a much stronger candidate than Mastriano, and while Shapiro remains the clear favorite after once-dominant Senator Bob Casey's unexpected loss last cycle, it's clear there's always room for uncertainty in Pennsylvania. Alrighty, that leaves us with just 5 more races still to be determined, and these will almost certainly be the 5 closest contests of the 2026 cycle. Starting in the Rust Belt, we've got Michigan, with Democratic incumbent Gretchen Whitmer term limited. This race is shaping up to be one of the most competitive in the country. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson appears to have the inside track for the Democratic nomination, and she'd be a strong general election candidate. Meanwhile, the best news Republicans have gotten all cycle is still when Congressman John James announced his bid for governor back in April. James is about as strong of a general election candidate as Republicans could hope for in Michigan, effectively neutralizing the advantage Democrats would usually have as incumbents in a state with a roughly even partisan lean. That said, there's a major third-party wildcard here, independent Mike Duggan, the mayor of Detroit since 2014. Duggan is a rare example of a big city mayor with high approval ratings, and his statewide name recognition alone gives him a solid base of support. Right now, he's pulling in around 20% of the vote across the 4 polls that have tested a 3-way race between Benson, James, and Duggan. Benson has led in all 4, but by 5 points or less in each of the last 3. All 3 major forecasters have the race rated as a toss-up, while the prediction market Kalshi gives Democrats a clear edge with a 73% chance of winning. Personally, I've got Michigan in the tilt Democrat column, but make no mistake, this is basically a coin flip. Then there's Wisconsin, where incumbent Democrat Tony Evers just announced his retirement, a major blow to Democrats since he would have been a clear favorite for re-election. His lieutenant governor, Sarah Rodriguez, has already declared her candidacy, but several more prominent Democrats are still weighing a run, most notably former lieutenant governor and U.S. Senate candidate Mandela Barnes, Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson, and Attorney General Josh Kaul. On the Republican side, former Governor Scott Walker has declined to run, leaving Congressman Tom Tiffany as the biggest name so far to publicly express interest in the race. Wisconsin's partisan lean is about as evenly split as it gets. 5 of the last 7 presidential elections here were decided by less than a point, including each of the last 3. Trump most recently carried the state by just 0.8%. Even the last 2 U.S. Senate races were decided by less than a single percentage point. For now, I've got Wisconsin as a pure toss-up. I can't in good conscience give either party better than 50-50 odds with so little known about the final field. Now let's head down south to Georgia, with Republican Governor Brian Kemp term limited. This race, just like Michigan, is shaping up to be one of the most closely watched of the cycle. Georgia remains one of the most competitive states in presidential politics and continues to trend just slightly to the left of the national average. But when it comes to state-level races, the GOP still holds the edge. In the 2022 midterms, Republicans swept every statewide office, winning by margins ranging from 5 to 10 points. The party also maintains control over both chambers of the Georgia legislature. As for the 2026 governor's race, both primary fields remain wide open. On the Republican side, State Attorney General Chris Carr and Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones have both declared their candidacies, with Jones the favorite to receive the critical Trump endorsement. On the Democratic side, former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is the biggest name in the field so far, but she's been out-fundraised by State Senator Jason Estes, who's currently favored according to the prediction markets. 2-time nominee Stacey Abrams is still reportedly considering a third run, and there's also a recent report suggesting that former Republican Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan is weighing a run as a Democrat. Long story short, the general election outlook is very murky right now, with no meaningful polling in either primary. Fundamentally, Republicans hold a slight edge as the incumbent party, especially considering Georgia's recent statewide lean. For now, I'm placing Georgia in the tilt Republican column, though again, it's effectively a toss-up. All right, let's wrap things up in the Southwest with Nevada and Arizona. In Nevada, Republican Governor Joe Lombardo enters 2026 with a strong approval rating and plans to run for re-election, riding the momentum of a significant rightward shift in the state's politics. Trump carried Nevada by over 3 points in 2024, becoming the first Republican to win the state at the presidential level since 2004. Lombardo's own win in 2022, when he unseated then-Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak, was one of the earliest signs that Nevada was trending red. Democrats' best shot is likely Aaron Ford, the state attorney general, who officially announced his candidacy on Monday. He's not alone in the field, though. Washoe County Commissioner Alexis Hill has also confirmed she's running. Republicans, of course, would welcome a contested Democratic primary, giving Lombardo a head start in both fundraising and messaging. Even without that advantage, I'd still give Lombardo the edge, as a well-funded incumbent in a state where momentum clearly favors the GOP. That said, if Democrats perform well nationally in 2026, Ford could absolutely ride the wave to victory in what remains one of the most competitive states in the country. Now on to Arizona, arguably the GOP's second best flip opportunity after Kansas, following a hard shift to the right in 2024 when Trump carried the state by 5.5 points. Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs's approval rating is relatively unremarkable. She narrowly defeated Kari Lake in 2022, though Lake proved to be a deeply flawed candidate, a point she reinforced with her poor showing in the 2024 Senate race. This time, Republicans are choosing between Congressman Andy Biggs and former gubernatorial candidate Karen Taylor Robson. Both received co-endorsements from Donald Trump earlier this year. Robson would be the much stronger general election candidate, while Biggs could struggle statewide, considering he's one of the most conservative members of the House, and Arizona voters have consistently rejected far-right candidates in recent cycles. But it's Biggs who's leading, both in polling and the prediction markets. He's held a lead of more than 20 points over Robson in all 4 public surveys, and according to Kalshi, he has about a 70% chance of securing the nomination. That gives Hobbs a slight edge in my mind as I project Biggs to be a well below average candidate. So with that, I project Republicans to hold 28 governorships after the 2026 midterms, compared to Democrats' 21 with 1 toss-up. That reflects a net gain of 1 seat for the GOP, as they're very likely to flip Kansas. Otherwise, every other seat, apart from Wisconsin, is currently expected to stay with the incumbent party. That, of course, is almost certain to change over the next 16 months before Election Day. As always, drop your thoughts on this analysis in the comments below. Shout out to my channel members listed in the description. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Check out more of my content here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP out.